What's up, John? What's up, Steve?
How's it going now?
Thank you guys for coming over. Appreciate it. And it wasn't too long of a trip. Did you guys walk here?
Yeah, we're about 350 feet from where we're sitting right now.
How neat is that?
Convenient.
Isn't that cool? No, and I think Tehachapi loves having Rise Renewables here. So that's fantastic. We got some warm days. As we walked in, we had a fire outside. That probably gets the safety thoughts going.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a wind turbine, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately, on the other side of the hill, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's we live in the high desert. It's hot. I think people are familiar with the risk of fire in California. It's just always a shame when it hits our industry, our homes, in our neighborhoods. But I think we just saw that was partially contained already, and the helicopters in the air, and the what do they got? The planes were dropping the retardant. I read so. Bit of a safety moment there just to kick us off. Yeah, not so bad. Well, guys, appreciate you coming and talking about Rise Renewables. I think what you guys have done in the terms of technician training and the special focus on safety in the solar space and the inverter space is just amazing, and continue to hear great compliments from some of the biggest owners and developers in our country. So pretty exciting. Tell us what's Rise got going on this year?
Constant development and constant training. So, it's kind of one of these things where, just like in a lot of aspects of the industry, you're always doing the job while also trying to improve on the job that you're already doing. So our entire year has been rapid growth, response to the need, the desperate need in the industry. But really, how do we improve and move on to the next thing? So never getting stagnant in what we did last year, but always moving forward and kind of what the next product's going to be, what the next course is going to be, what the next curriculum is.
We've also been heavily focused on a solar new to industry program in lieu of there being a standard. So that's been a huge push for this year especially. But our business model being develop, train, support, we also have a remote tech support where we can have the extended reach of the technicians to come through and be able to help them on a ticketing system as well.
Wow. No, that's fantastic. So it's continue to develop and train in the areas that the industry you're seeing that it needs, I assume.
Yes.
Right. And probably owners, operators calling you and making requests for types of training.
Yeah, it's a little combination. So as we started as a company, my goal and John's goal to a similar extent, right? So my background's in solar. I've been in solar for 11 years, John being in wind for, same amount of time, if not longer. I've always wanted to build a safety standard and a technical standard for new to industry technicians. How do I go from day one in the industry to year 4, 5, 6 and on, constantly growing, constantly developing as an individual, as a technician. And we didn't have it, right? The industry doesn't have it. This is probably one of the biggest challenges of the renewable industry is the job not only has to get done, but is getting done. It's obviously, we can open up that window right now and see, 1,000 wind turbines staring at us, climb the top of the mountain, you see hundreds of gigawatts of solar all across the Antelope Valley and across the country and the world. And obviously, so it's getting built, but it's getting built with this kind of reactionary approach of when something happens, we will then deal with that issue. Or when someone gets hurt, we will deal with that issue. And so we're trying to take a proactive approach of how do we standardize this using our industry experience, and not just mine. This isn't, Jon and Stephen saying, hey, we're God's gift to solar and wind. It's saying, hey, based on our experience in the field, based on our friends' experience in the field, based on our coworkers and our staff, their experience, what have we seen across all aspects? And how can we take lessons learned from wind and relate it to solar and vice versa? So one of the big things for me just recently, I climbed a lot in the Navy. So, climbed at the mast doing antenna maintenance. So I was familiar with climbing safety, but I never really got directly exposed into it until I started teaching climbing safety alongside, GWO programs and things of that nature. So how do you take those lessons learned from, decades of climbing experience in the wind industry and relate that to the challenges of climbing in the solar industry. And there's a lot more overlap than you might think. Now, obviously, we're not putting solar inverters and modules 300 feet up in the air, but we still have to climb on top of pad mount transformers and do inspections. We have to climb on top of inverters to do chiller maintenance. We have to climb on top of battery banks to, inspect the tops of these things. So we are working at heights, but a lot of times the only solution is throwing a harness and a Y lanyard. So it's not that people are trying to be unsafe of just like, it'd be awesome today if I fell down and hit the ground really, really hard. So they're trying to implement safety solutions, and they're saying, well, this is what I've seen other people do, not really fully understanding it. So we're trying to take all of these lessons learned from various aspects of the industry, not just our own, but other industries adjacent to us. And how can we not have to learn these lessons the hardest way?
Yeah. Steve, I've been following Rise for a couple of years now, meeting with you guys. I'm very intrigued with the business. And I think what intrigues me the most, every one of our conversations, the reason seems to be safety and the why, but it's not what you're doing. You're a training company, right? So you take, here's our problem statement, safety, and our solution is training. But at Rise, you're not just doing safety training.
No, we, especially with the technical training, we hate aimless instruction. When people come in and say, hey, put the square peg in the square hole, if you will, because we're telling you to, we want them to know why they're doing what they're doing. We want them to know fastener theory. We want them to know high current connections, because we look at the top issues in the field, right, as far as critical errors, and we're trying to address those things at the root level. And a lot of these technicians, they don't really trust their management in a way to just be super transparent with them. They know that we're technicians, we're all technicians. I don't think any of us planned on being in instruction, but we really want to help people. And the industry has a huge issue, right, with quality. And as it expands, these new technicians, they really need a jumpstart the correct way. Another thing we don't really like about traditional standards is every revision, they're cutting back on the duration. And we're saying, hey, there's more and more incidents in the field. We should be extending the durations. There should be more than one safety training on electrical safety and lotto performance more than once a year, or tower climbing safety more than once a year. A lot of this is put on the backs of the technician, and they're chasing LDs. They're listening to their manager just, really drive them. And we're trying to be that voice of reason. We leave our cards on every desk. I think I've told you this 70 times, but we mean it. We tell them to call us, and we'll be their voice of reason for them and just say, hey, stop work authority. We're really trying to empower the technician to think about what they're doing, to stop work and call us if they have a question. I even say blame it on us. Say, Jon and Steve with Rise told you not to, right? Just give them any resource possible to empower them to do the right thing and use their stop work authority, because we're tired of seeing people in this industry die, get hurt. People that I personally know, I spent time with their families, hearing they fall to their death, and a lot of people can say that's the technician's error, right? But there was a lot of tolerated mannerisms and habits leading up to that could have been corrected if we had a better safety culture. We need a better safety culture in this industry, period, or, it's not going to go the right way.
Wow. Let's keep digging into that a little bit, right? Problem statement is safety and solution is technical training, right? Because that's what you're bringing in. No, I love this. So it's the technician, needs to get to a point where they can trust themselves, right? Because they've had enough training. And if there's a question, you're saying, call your trainer. That's unique. I don't know that I've really heard that before. And I hope it's catching on. I think I did hear that, at least one student I know of called in, but I hope others are taking advantage of that, because it's a nice extra resource, right? And it's not to cause any problems with their manager or, the boss or whatever, but it's just to get the right answer to the safe working question that's on their mind. That's powerful. I don't know that I've heard it before.
Well, and you kind of already alluded to this. It's not just a safety thing. I can't go and grab or print out, this big OSHA tome of information or NFPA 70E, the electrical portion, and just be like, bam, I can throw this in front of me and keep me safe. You have to understand, yes, here's the safety guidelines, kind of start big, here's what we have to do. And then we have to actually apply that to our specific program. So we kind of throw around terms like QEW or EQW, qualified electrical worker, and say, okay, you are now a qualified electrical worker. Go and service this entire solar project or this entire wind project. Not understanding that, that big training is our start. It's our framework. All things have to be discussed through a kind of a veil of safety or kind of this discussion. But once you kind of hone in on, now I'm working on this specific unit or this specific tracker system or this specific turbine or this specific transformer, okay, how do I take the technical aspects of this job while talking about the safety and do the job right? So safety, quality, technical expertise, all of these things go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So we don't just offer the safety training. It's not just, OSHA, CPR, NFPA. We do a full career pathway training. And again, that's where that constant development is coming, because as the industry is changing, we have to be proactive about it. We have to kind of predict where the industry is going to be and have those programs ready to go. And we've done a lot of that by directly partnering with various OEMs. So in our lab, we have actual equipment manufacturer hardware that is real. This is, it's not like a simulation, although we do have some simulation training aids, which are great. But we have real world experience where it's not just like, hey, here's this, but it's going to kind of look like this in the field or pretend like this is what it looks like. No, this is the actual equipment you're going to be seeing in the field and how to operate on and around this safely. So we kind of always say our lab is where we can fail safely. So you can do all the crazy stuff and, jump into it and make those mistakes in a safe environment so we can learn why we don't do this in the real world before we actually apply, big power to it.
Wow. A lot we want to unpack with that bit. But just to clear one other thing, Jon, you said earlier, so, it went from safety to technical training to now a hotline. So your customers reached out and said, can you guys fix it for us? Right?
Yeah.
Because they know you as the technical expert.
Yeah. So full circle, they ask us, hey, we have a severe issue. No one can figure it out. Can you guys come out, send your team? And we say, hey, we don't have a field service team. A lot of people ask us why. They said we could have a great field service team, and we agree we could. But we don't want to be a direct competitor to these people, right? We want to be able to reach as many individuals as possible. And the only way to do that is to be a non-compete with all the other field service technicians. However, we will hold their hand from the beginning to end, right? You take somebody that's working at Walmart, for instance, that has no acclimation to the industry whatsoever. We put them through our new to industry program, give them all the safety training, give them a tangible career pathway with on-the-job verification, right? Doesn't matter what company they work for, we can do this. And then after they're there, right, let's say the company says, hey, they're working on this specific piece of equipment. We can develop an actual, right, safe work procedure or program for that piece of equipment, right? So they're qualified on that specific equipment. And then once they're in the field, we can also have technical information to help them as further support. So we're really trying to think of the end user here, because both him and I, right, we're technicians, and we didn't have this support. When I first started, I struggled big time. Couldn't find the information, didn't know the information even existed, right? I was a few years into my career, and I had no idea that there was a document that told me anything, because it was just go do this. We'll show you how, no why, nothing, right? Torque these fasteners, just set the gauge to this and just do it every time and just do it, right? No one told me what that was doing, right? Fastener theory. Tool. It would take 10 minutes to sit down with me or any of these technicians that are extremely smart and tell them the theory of why. Right? Not just aimless instruction, but this is why. And then it clicks. Wow, okay. Maybe we won't screw up every turbine because we're doing exactly what they told me to do, right? Yeah. And it's just really frustrating. So we're just trying to empower the technician, right? And also challenge the industry, the technician and every single company out there, right? We need a better safety culture, right? I'm tired of seeing people getting hurt, tired of seeing people die, and every single one of those is preventable. So it's like, what are the trigger states of those, right? And no pointing fingers to anybody. Let's just all move in that direction. So we put our money where our mouth is. And I said, look, I got to do something about this. Steve said he has to do something about this. We started Rise, right? We both left very good careers, right, to start Rise solely because we care about the end user. And we want to actually do our part, right? Whether it's small or large, to help these people so they don't have to struggle like we did.
Yeah. And the solution is increased technical training, right? More technical knowledge per person.
Well, I feel competency. If a technician knows exactly what they're doing and they know exactly where to find the information, they know the steps to troubleshoot, they know AC/DC theory, they understand a single line diagram to point out exactly where to isolate electricity and the proper PPE to do so, that competent individual is going to be safe, right? Obviously, there's self-triggers for themselves, make sure they're not frustrated, etc. But if they have the tools to win, at least, right? We're just trying to give the tools to win to these technicians, because right now they're all missing a lot of tools, and it's scary.
No, that's impressive. I love it. I think you're onto it. That capability, technical awareness, education, I agree, is 100% the answer. I'm impressed that you guys went out said, okay, we'll run a hotline for, our students, our dedicated clients and customers, and, share more technical knowledge because you believe in it that much. It's a little bit outside of the business mission and scope, but it does support, I think, the passion and spirit of Rise. Share that knowledge.
Yeah, that's individually based
impressive.
too. Someone could call with a 1 hour minimum, swipe a credit card, and we'll help them if we have the technical ability to do so.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible, right, for any individuals. And if it's just a courtesy call or question, they'll call Steve or I or the other instructors we have. If we're not busy, right, we'll answer. If we are, we'll call them back. We really pride ourselves in getting back to these people, and we want to be a resource for them, a voice of reason, and empower them to do the right things and stop work when they need to.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, 3S Lift, a global supplier of safety and access solutions with a focus on wind energy. Their innovative ladder-mounted single technician lift called the Climb Auto System completely eliminates the need to climb ladders up to 120 meters. And if you've ever climbed in the freezing cold of North Dakota or the sweltering heat of South Texas, you know the safety and efficiency value that this product brings to wind technicians and owner-operators. In North America, 3S has installed over 15,000 of these lifts and are installing 200 per week. If your site is still climbing, you should contact 3S Lift at info@3samericas.com to get your quote to retrofit your turbines, or go on their website, 3slift.com, to learn more. Yeah.
Well, and Adam, you say it's kind of outside of the work scope, but I really fundamentally disagree. Our whole, and John already mentioned it, develop, train, support. It's kind of these three aspects. Development isn't always to develop the training. Training isn't always offering support. They all kind of go hand in hand. And, John already kind of alluded to it. We don't have a service team. We don't send guys in the fields. It's one of our most frequently asked questions of, hey, could you just send your guys out here? Could you come? Could you come? Could you come? Because there's such a desperate need for high-end skill sets, to repair solar sites, battery storage sites, wind sites. But we see it as we want to give service teams all of the tools to succeed. It's kind of one of those things of, okay, you have a specific need for a QEW training. I have this specific system. How do I operate safely on and around in accordance with OSHA and NFPA and various other safety platforms? Well, you have to have specific, unique job site training for that site. In addition to that, you have to have like your industry training. Hey, here's all of the things that you need to know as it relates to the industry, the maintenance, the troubleshooting, the industry safety, in an adaptive environment. But then it goes into, hey, I have to know everything. And again, from my solar background, everything from the module up to the substation. Asking one individual and to know all of that is a lot. The DC health aspect has such a nuance to it. There's such skill sets into it. Being an inverter technician, there's a massive amount of knowledge when it comes to effectively troubleshooting and maintaining an inverter. Same thing with the medium voltage. If I'm going to, they have entire companies whose sole purpose is supporting medium voltage. And then you go up to the substation, even if I'm a medium voltage guy, I might not know about specific, substation operations and troubleshooting and maintenance procedures. So all of that comes into, cool, Adam, you're brand spanking new on the job site. Here's 2 weeks of training. Good luck. You're now responsible for all of this. That's where we're at as an industry. So how do we help you operate safely and of a high quality to support this project for the next 25, 30 years? Well, you need that phone a friend. Hey, I'm in front of here. I've got the right PPE because I know I have the right PPE because I've been trained on this particular system. But, I haven't worked on this aspect of the industry in a couple of months. I don't remember the fault codes or how to pull data, or, maybe I do remember how to pull data, but I don't know how to interpret this because I'm the DC health guy and the inverter guy, he's on vacation. So what do I do? Well, you can call us and we can be that, cushion, that safety net.
No. Okay. I understand. Hotline is not outside of the scope of Rise. That's for sure. It does fall in. I appreciate that. I wasn't familiar. I don't know if other training companies are doing that. It seems unique to me. I hadn't heard of it before.
So I do know of one other company that has done it and done it successfully as a third party. But most of the time when you think of technical support lines, it's OEMs, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of goes back into one of our biggest philosophies of right to repair. So if you guys are familiar with the idea of right to repair, John Deere, the whole thing is this massive headache in the industry of, do I have the right to repair my own equipment once that factory warranty has lapsed?
Okay.
Which on a surface level, I completely agree with the OEM aspect of having proprietary information. I'm all about it. You have a patent, you have an equipment, you've done some custom build that's yours, you should own that. But the biggest challenge is a lot of these companies don't exist after 3 to 5 years. I can look back when I got into the industry 11 years ago, and the landscape has completely changed. It's not the same OEMs that we were dealing with 11 years ago. It's not the same O&M companies that we were dealing with 11 years ago. It's not the same module manufacturers or tracker systems. Now, there are some big names that have, stood the test of time, but even they struggle to support their legacy fleet. When you start to have 10 years worth of equipment, 15, 20, 30 years worth of equipment with turnover rates the way they are, yeah, we can really support our current product line or maybe one product line removed. But when you start to say, I've got 5, 6, 7 product lines previously where no one that currently works for the company has ever commissioned one of these or never worked on one of these, how do you effectively support this stuff? And unfortunately, the case is that a lot of manufacturers want to keep that proprietary information, which again, I think they should to some extent. But now we have this service side of the industry that just doesn't know how to work on this stuff. So that's one of our biggest things from a technical perspective. Obviously, right, we have this foundation of safety, but how do we work on these sites that are supposed to last 25, 30 years when I bought an inverter and 3 years later, I can't call the OEM? And this is a very real problem that the industry faces.
So I always looked at our growth, right? Mm-hmm. It's clear the citizens of this planet want more power.
Oh, yeah.
And they want a big chunk of that to be from renewables. Mm-hmm. So there's huge growth in terms of energy demand from the planet, our country for sure. Mm-hmm. So it always fits that way in my mind. But you're also adding this bit of a gap because of that race for more renewable power. We're going to have some churn and have seen already with OEMs popping up and maybe, not doing as well or some other market share going somewhere else. And it's funny. I was just thinking about RE Plus last year. I met 10 new BESS OEMs while I was there. None of them have a site in our country, in the USA. And this was in Vegas, right? And, and I asked some more questions. You got one in the pipeline. We think we're close. Yeah. So there are a lot of new OEMs coming, but I hadn't really thought about the ones that may not last.
Right.
And the owner still needs that site taken care of. The technicians still need support for regular maintenance, service, troubleshooting, repairs. And you're trying to help fill that gap. And are you seeing the path? I mean, there's a lot of different equipment and software, but can you flatten that learning curve from one OEM type or product type to another with the techs?
Absolutely. We have a really good program when it comes to like Inverter 101, of just, hey, you're going to be an inverter technician, and this is one of the biggest things from an OEM perspective. A lot of, module manufacturers, you can, interchange them as long as the ratings are the same or similar enough. You can change those out. So it's not as big a deal from a repowering perspective. But the inverter is a huge stopgap where if I'm going to repower this inverter, which realistically in 3 to 5 years, you shouldn't be repowering an inverter. But that's just, again, it's what the industry is facing right now. But it's just a simple 1-for-1 swap out. Even if the KVA ratings of those inverters are the same, you can't just pull one off and put another one on. There's a lot of programming and technical challenges that go into it. So we have a really good Inverter 101 program, or PCS 101, a power conversion station, which includes your transformer, your auxiliary services racks, and the inverter. But what does it mean to be an inverter technician? What is the common maintenance you would see? And what are basic troubleshooting steps you could do, as well as the concept or introductory concepts to programming or configuration of that inverter? Now, obviously, every manufacturer is going to have their own proprietary software, which again, I'm all for. I love that they have proprietary software. I have my own personal favorites that I like working with, but the challenge then comes into, okay, we're no longer supporting this inverter for whatever reason. Is that information being made publicly available? In most cases, it's not. So we're trying to kind of tackle that. How do we get that information to the end user? Again, being that guy that's been in the field where I have no resources, go fix it.
I love that you see the gap.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that one. And probably other folks are if they've been in the solar space for a while. And I really like that you're going away from, it's this technician certified on this platform, but how do I create an inverter technician? Right. I think that's spot on. And that'll help bridge that gap as our industry continues to age and grow. Let's thank our friends over at Renew Safety, your proactive partner in safety solutions. With comprehensive safety consulting, ensuring compliance with all safety regulations and standards. Expert staffing solutions, providing trained safety professionals tailored to your project's needs. Commitment to sustainability, promoting a safe and sustainable working environment. Contact Renew Safety at info@renewsafety.com and speak to one of their industry experts about their proven track record for safety management on numerous projects. Or perhaps you're looking for construction, safety staffing, contractor monitoring, incident investigation, or program development and training. Check out Renew Safety at renewsafety.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something unique we also do is when they come in, we always do an NFPA 70E kind of refresher, whether the customer orders it or not. We're seeing a huge gap with competency issues, interpreting arc flash labeling and such, because a lot of these people have like click safety or some e-learning environment where you can choose every wrong answer before you get the right one. And it's kind of an issue on our part. A lot of the times they're there for an inverter specific training, and we have to basically debrief them before or after hours on stuff that they fundamentally should have known to get there, right? And we definitely want to help them out, but they should have known that beforehand. And we're like, you're an experienced technician. What have you been doing if you don't know how to read this? It's kind of scary, to be honest with you. So we're firm believers in no e-learning. Just because how can you prove competency if you're doing an e-learning?
Interesting.
Yeah, we want, not only is it, the mythology of it, but we actually put them out there in the lab and say, do it. Cool, you did it on this one, do it on this one. Hey, you just watch your buddy do that one, so do that one over there, right? We want to make sure that they fully understand and grasp it. Otherwise, we can't prove they're safe in the field.
And there's something about a cultural influence that I guess I'm feeling or hearing from you guys, right? So if it's not e-learning, it's with the instructor, and some of the benefits are learn to ask the question. Mm-hmm. And then the way you say it is, here it is, go do it, right? So then you get to watch and witness and support when maybe you see a gap. And that type of critical thinking training is unique. It's not specific on here's how you change out this or service that bit, or right, challenging that critical thinking bit.
Yeah, we're like Big Brother over here saying, look, this is this is what you need to do, right? And show them the things, as well as we all know conditions in the field aren't always as they seem, right, with proper instruction. When we run across these things, we're like, hey, this is what the governing agency says to do. We know that this is near impossible. Stephen had mentioned it, like if you're on top doing chiller work or something, right, and you have to mitigate heights of 6.5 feet off the ground, and they're putting a fall rest lanyard on it, right? And a fall factor 2, you're going to hit the ground before that ever deploys. They're doing the motions, but they don't know any better. I'm challenging them to say, then why get up there? If you know you're in a fall factor 2, just don't do it. Challenge the idea of, okay, now that we can't do it with what we have, what do we need to do this properly? Oh, it says it calls for scaffolding. That's what we need. Thinking, let's get scaffolding. Why are we working around things just to, make someone happy? Or, I just don't like seeing technicians putting their own safety behind, production or, a value. And I know you and I talked about it. I was much like you. I lived on the road to support my family, and I would have done anything because I needed to support my family. But I feel this industry needs to stop basically empowering people to go faster, right? And we need to start empowering people to slow down and do it correctly and be safer, right? And then hold people accountable when they're driving something other than, right? We need to take a step back and slow down and drive a better safety culture. I'll keep saying it, but that's what we have to move forward properly, especially with the amount of growth that's coming very quickly. I just don't want to see more people get electrocuted or die. Seasoned technicians, they know better. So why are they putting their lives in front of, or why aren't they putting their lives in front of anything? That needs to be number one, is their own safety, but they're letting other, things govern that, and that's disturbing.
And when we talked about it earlier, I could have used trainers and mentors like you guys when I started as a technician. I didn't do that very often, right? If my boss said, go do this, I just went and did it, right? To the best of my ability. And, thankfully everything worked out for the most part. But I don't know that I would have been confident enough to go and ask questions. Well, I wasn't. I wanted to get the job done. Yeah, like we said, I got my job. I needed to keep it. I needed to grow. I had a family to feed. This was it. I could have used you guys, trainers and mentors, and somebody to say, ask those questions. Or if you're not comfortable, give me a call.
Yeah, and truth be told, we needed us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I struggled. I can't speak for him, but I definitely struggled and made some dumb mistakes. And looking back, I was like, why? Trying to figure out why I was doing the dumb things I was doing when I knew better, and for whatever reason, I'm trying to dissect that and look at these new technicians. And I feel like if they walked into a really firm safety culture where that's just so unacceptable, that they're not going to do that. They're going to learn the proper way, and then they're going to be the eyes and voice of reason for the other guys coming in. This tribal knowledge, these really experienced technicians are the worst ones, right? The ones that get away with it every time until they don't. And that's where we need these new guys to call them out and say, hey, man, I'm just looking out after you. Let's not do that, Yeah. And trying to give these guys also customer soft skills, we like to call it. But even if you're not talking to the customer, how to talk to your peers, the people next to you, and let them know your intent is to help them, right? Not just to be critical on them or judge them, right? And that fosters a great culture. So we try to really cover every end of it in the short time that we do have them.
Don't get me wrong. I had great mentors in life, but your boss isn't always available, right? They're busy doing their own job as well. And if you can collect other trainers and mentors, a technician has to keep a wide breadth of contacts, right? A couple of guys I work with, they always say, well, open the Rolodex. Obviously they're as old as me, but that is a wise thing. And more people need to do it. No.
Well, and I know for me personally, when I first got into the industry, I had some of the most incredible, and I stand by this to this day, of some of the most incredible management teams that the industry had, the solar industry had. You know who you are. But for me, it wasn't so much, my manager is trying to push me, or my manager is trying to get, the next deadline. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It was slow down and get it done right. But it was my own ego that really got in the way in that case, right? So it's not always the management or the executive team that's pushing it. It's that machismo attitude that says, I need to be the best. And that was very much me. I always wanted to be better than the guy next to me, and for my own self-righteous, kind of ego when it came to, I want to commission more inverters. I want to, close out more tickets. I want to, travel more miles. And it was like, this guy has this metric he can brag about. How am I going to go about beating that? Now, having said that, the team that I worked with at the time had some of the best technicians that this industry has had. And almost every single one of them has gone on to be executives in their own companies, start their own companies, go the entrepreneurship route. Again, you guys know who you are. But it's incredible to see that team, how far they've come. But in my own case, where, pushing myself to a limit. And what I now tell guys, it's like I did not start off as this, wise sage of safety and technical training. I almost killed myself on a job site, did my very best to not go home that day, and it was one of those things of, it wasn't the company driving me. It wasn't the site management that was, was pushing me. It wasn't like a end of the year commissioning. It was, I need to close another ticket out today. I need to go and push and push and push. Yourself. Yeah. And so,
what does that mean? You tried your best to not go home today.
Oh, well, I just was doing unsafe things. It wasn't,
okay.
Wasn't depressed or anything or trying to commit suicide, thank God. But no, it was one of those things. I've talked with a lot of guys since my injury that have been injured, and nobody that I have ever met goes to work saying, it'd be really awesome today, a trip in the ambulance,
right.
Getting heloed out, or, not seeing my wife and kids, or, it'd be really awesome having, skin grafts on my arm or something like that. Hey, I don't have enough scars already. I need another one. Like nobody talks like this, right? But so often we as field technicians act in such a way, that's the silent part, that we're actually saying this stuff. And that was in my case, like I said, it was not my management team in my case, it was my own hard-headedness of, I didn't do my safety paperwork. We didn't do a full complete lockout tagout. We didn't verify electrically safe. And that wasn't the first time I'd ever done this.
Sure.
I had developed this kind of self-culture that I'm working by myself and I'm going to get the job done fast. Well, how do I do this? I'm going to push these things to the side. And unfortunately, in my case, the way I learned my lesson was, getting shocked by 850 volt DC array at about 5 amps for about 5 seconds. It was miserable. Worst pain I've ever felt by far. But that was what it took to light a fire under me to say, no, there is a better way to do this. That's one of those things where one of my good friends and mentors, he asked me, probably year one at Rise, would you be where you were at today if it wasn't for that instance back then? And probably not. I don't know that I would be in the education field if it wasn't for that particular instance. So when we talk about the safety, we talk about the technical aspect, we talk about this, it's not just paying lip service to it. We were actually there. We actually experienced these things for better, for worse, and yes, I have seen bad management. I've seen great management. I have seen, bad technicians myself, and I've seen great technicians myself.
And I've shared some stories too, very similar. And I always say at this point, I look back and I go, well, I'm a very result-oriented type of human. And maybe we're the same. So I've had some things similar, but I bet we're not the only ones that made those mistakes when we were young. And I bet we're not the only ones today making a similar mistake, right? With great intentions, but making poor safety choices because of that. Okay, all of this, is this part of the passion on when did you guys start Rise? And how did that work? Clearly, we understand your passion behind what you're doing. And I want to talk a little bit more about how you're doing it and some of that technical training. But what did the startup look like? I mean, this seems like a passion project.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, if you would have asked me 2020, 2019, hey, starting a business is being an entrepreneur your dream? And it was, quite the opposite. I was very much wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I loved the job security there. But it was just one of those things of once I had kind of, and I know Jon's very similar to this, where once we got into the education side and saw the limitations that the existing training content at the time was, it really started to build that we need to do more. We need to do greater. I know Jon already mentioned this it was that race to the finish line that we need to, the smallest amount of training to teach our guys to do a square peg and a square hole. And we won this contract. We do this contract. We move on to the next contract, just enough, training to now put the triangle peg in the triangle hole. And we won that contract. We did that contract and go to the next one. And it was really frustrating because I know that if you look at other industries, whether it's, my original background being in the military, whether you look in nuclear, gas, oil, they have these apprenticeship programs that it's not about square peg in a square hole. Is how do we take someone brand spanking new to the industry and turn them into a full-fledged technician or engineer, whatever the case may be. And so that's kind of where I talked with Jon, approached him and I said, hey, I think we can do this, and it's, with how fast the solar industry specifically is growing. If we couldn't do it now, we'd never be able to do it, from a, just a business management perspective. So we kind of took that leap and, 3 years later, so that was February 2021 when I jumped ship and started the company. And I was kind of a glorified field technician for a couple of months as we kind of, got our feet wet and figured out how it is, going to work and got our first training contracts and built it up. Towards the end of 21, we hired our first, employees. And then into 2022 is when Jon came over full time and was able to really explode as we have. But yeah, a lot of good mentorship along the way. But realistically, it was just kind of betting on ourselves. I think we can do it. Yeah. And, at least taking that risk and seeing if we could. And
honestly, I was told once, if you bet on people, you'll never lose, right? So we just kept to our moral compass and said it has to work out because it's the right thing to do. And somehow it did, right? I don't know why I was so confident it would, but I was just, if we're doing the right thing, I feel like it'll work out. And I'm glad that a lot of the customers we have today believe in that same thing.
We'd like to take this time to thank another one of our wonderful sponsors, Podge Engineering. Podge Engineering, making wind and solar all we know it can be. Are your renewable energy assets underperforming or not performing at all? Did you expect many years of longevity and they're failing on you now? Podge LLC offers many customized, engineered products and solutions to get these assets back on track. Podge Engineering also performs root cause analysis, engineering services, procurement, and construction. Visit podge.org. That's PADGE.org. Remember Podge, making wind and solar all we know it can be.
And how we named it is kind of funny. We're walking down the alley and we're trying to think of a name, right? And I say, hey, man, I had this dumb dream last night that we named it RISE, and it stood for Renewable Industry Service Excellence. And he looks at me, he's like, that's so stupid. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's like, I guess we can keep it in the meantime. And it never changed. So yeah, but it is an acronym. That's what it stands for. Originally, our slogan is safety is not proprietary, right? Because it isn't, and a lot of people think it is. But yeah, we kind of changed that to more or less show exactly what we do, which is develop, train, support, and try to, isolate that.
No, I get it. Hey, great ideas come in the dreams. That's
sometimes.
All right.
Some very bad ones do too sometimes.
Well, but you had the passion for it. You wrote down the plan, right? What are we going to go do? And then you go execute your plan. And no, failure is not an option with you two. That's crystal clear. You're doing so. Okay, you landed a few contracts, right? You're starting to get more and more customers. How's it been? Did you get good feedback and support? Customers right away? Take a little longer? And what's the feedback today? What do they like?
Well, a lot of this, it's, the industry is full of nepotism. So our first contracts were really, friends of ours that knew our quality of work, we knew personally. And so of course we leveraged, some of that to kind of at least get our foot in the door, so to speak, as a company. But a lot of it came down to, we wanted to identify our standards as a company. What do we hold true, or what do we hold valuable? And a lot of that was this idea of, everybody wants speed. We got to get it done faster. I need guys in the field tomorrow. I can't wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I need them today, tomorrow, yesterday. The industry is just growing so fast. We don't have time to wait. And so we've actually turned down a lot of business, even in the early years of, hey, you can't get training done that fast. This is a 5-day course. That's how long it takes. It doesn't take 2 days. If it took 2 days, I tell you it took 2 days. And so we kind of stood by those morals and ethics to say, no, this is how long it takes to get it done legitimately. And we combine that with a constant feedback loop of every single class we're getting feedback. We have, and a lot of companies do it. But anonymous feedback forms from from our clients, from our students, and not just doing it as a check in the box of, see, look, they said all 5s, we're good to go, but actually asking for that honest feedback of, what didn't you like about this? And how do we change that? And what do we add? What do we take away? What do we modify? And we've implemented so much. So our training programs do not look the same. They don't look anything remotely close to what they did 3 years ago.
Good.
They're constantly improving. And our most recent one, which is a manufacturer-specific training, we've now taught it 5 times. Every single time we've taught it, it's improved. And it's not like we didn't have, like we're withholding information from class 1 and they said, oh, it'd be really great if you just gave us that, that little bit. So it's all the information that they need from day 1, but correcting the implementation of like, hey, with this particular model, it'd be really great if we had a hands-on practical that showed us this. Or, hey, you let us do a stack change out, but based on our experience, this other component over here, like the AC contactor, fails a lot more often. So even though we learned all the principles of replacing it, I would have really liked to do that particular component. So it's like, okay, cool. That's a pretty easy change out. Or, hey, you have this particular brand of PPE in the classroom. We use this other brand of PPE. Could we maybe integrate that with our next guys that come through? And within reason, we reinvest our money into that training program to say, how do we make this the best possible program for each and every technician that comes in here?
And a lot of that too is, we'd get a bunch of feedback. Hey, we need more time in the lab, right? So we'd extend the duration. The next course said, hey, we need more time in the lab. We'd bump it again. And then we'd stop saying, hey, we need more time in the lab, right? And that's kind of how we'd go. We read every single feedback form. But yeah, nowadays we have a full-blown student guide, right? So page by page, it goes along with the slide deck, and they have to pre-fill in some things, but not everything, right? So they can follow along. We have another book with all the acronyms that we can think of in the industry. I mean, it is a ton of acronyms because I never got that. And so they're like, hey, I never knew that's what that meant. I understand now. As long as all of their, workbooks and lab activities, we make them fill out a JSA every single morning, regardless of what we're doing. We really try to push that. But yeah, we went from, big, huge things for feedback to, hey, it's too cold in here. Hey, I want more cookies. And we're like, okay, we've arrived, They have nothing legitimate to say. So we think we're good now.
Hey, more cookies is a legitimate critique. I'm just
absolutely.
And we also have, right, it's not a pay to pass. That's another thing. I mean, you have to meet the criteria or unfortunately you fail. We're not a pay to pass. We're unwavering in our durations of courses. And now we don't have a suit and tie to tell us otherwise because we really want to invest in the technician to tell us, hey, this is why it needs to be like this because it's for the tech. Unfortunately, I'm not too concerned about the site they're going to and what they're doing. I'm concerned about them here and now. And I want them to leave here with as much material, as much possibilities for success that we can possibly give them. And a lot of these times, I'm sure they go, back and say, hey, torque wrench isn't calibrated. Hey, Jon Steve said that this is inadequate and they're spending all types of money, right? But I think collectively we can all say we want them to have the best stuff possible. We want them to be aware critical thinking is huge. We want them to come back and be excited. Hey, I'm excited to come back, or I've been in the industry for 4 years and I wish I would have had this course to begin with. That's really the drivers for us. Or, hey, we can really tell you guys care. Where it says additional comments, it says, hey, my instructors actually care. And we can tell they're actually from the industry and they don't have to stay late. They don't have to do what they do. They don't have to pour into us the way they are. Because all the people we have huge hearts. They want to be there, and they all have similar stories, from different parts of the industry of, man, we're on the struggle bus, because no one told me this. We're all learning every day. There's aspects of this industry I'm learning, Steve's learning, we're all learning, and we're all open to it, right? We want to be a sponge for adequate information to then give it back, right? We don't want to hold it. We want to definitely give back.
We all have to if we want this thing to grow together, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, no, I get it. You listen to your customers and you make improvements, and then you make sure that you're continuously improving, right? So tell us a little bit more about the technical training that you guys are offering. So we've certainly heard the safety bit.
Yeah, so my background was high-end technical. So when I I was in the military, Navy for 6 years, and that was all communications, navigation, radar equipment. And when I got into the industry, and this is another thing when it comes to the passion, I often ask students, what brings you to solar? How did you get here? Was this, some people think I want to hear, oh, I have this deep passion for solar and I want to save the environment and all that. And it's like, no, for me.
The sun's my favorite.
Yeah. I just really love staring into it. And no, but for me, it was, why I got into the industry was I wanted to put food on the table. Oh, you're willing to give me a paycheck and it's enough to feed my family. And at the time, I got, my first kid, my second one on the way of, hey, food on the table is great.
It's a great reason.
And then the passion followed the paycheck, basically. So coming from the manufacturer side, and in my opinion, one of the best manufacturers that I've ever had the pleasure of working alongside, they have just at the forefront of what the industry is doing and solving issues that the industry had not solved yet. And so just really loved working on the technical stuff. And then again, through my own experience and my own issues, my own, injury, then transitioning into training, and a lot of it was, after my injury, I had, my managers at the time had every right to fire me. It was mostly my fault, 99% me. I was the one doing the unsafe things, reaching into the cabinet.
That's accountability.
Yeah. But instead of just saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and cut our losses, they invested into me even more and said, we want you to now write the process, write the procedure, and train people on how not to do what you did. And so that was my first real exposure to how do I effectively think about the things that I have done, and where I was at in the industry, and how do I prevent other people from getting to where I was at in the industry. And so that was kind of my first taste, and then that passion of like, oh, I can actually help people. I can actually prevent people from feeling what I felt, and we can, actually save money in the long run. Anyone who's in safety and has ever had to do like a root cause analysis on a safety incident knows they ain't cheap. When someone gets hurt, it's a huge cost analysis. So companies that are now saying, hey, we can invest and save money, we can spend money to save money, is a cool thing. But anyways, the technical aspect of it, was always my love, was finding that fault that no one else can fix and being the guy to fix it. Okay. Being the star quarterback, I threw the final touchdown that won the game kind of thing of, one of my favorite times of year, not because it was easy, was end of the year commissioning. We have to get X amount of inverters done before December 31st because, we have to get it done.
You like the challenge?
Oh, I love the challenge. Okay. And it was so much fun. And again, being truly blessed to have some of the best minds in the industry, the best mentors in the industry, as far as just, guys that came over from the union, and said, hey, this is how this all works. Having some of the best technical minds and engineers, being blessed to work with them in a time in the industry where it was constant growing, constant OJT, constant, we just have to figure it out as we go, and just really developing that passion for solving these big issues. And then once you've solved a couple of big issues and realized that, oh, that mountain wasn't as hard to climb as I thought originally, I want the next mountain, and then the next mountain, and the next mountain. And then once you've climbed enough mountains, and you go like, now I kind of want to turn back and bring people, like, I want you to experience this thing too, and see that mountain right there? I know you think it's too big, but I've climbed it before. It's not that bad. You can too. So It's kind of a cool thing. And I love that my favorite training to do is the more advanced technical stuff.
And as far as our offerings, so on a general level, we have our new to industry, which isn't just safety. There's a lot of technical ability in there as far as fastener theory, solar working heights, a bunch of things like that. But then we also have a troubleshooting stage, which people call their Tech 2 or whatever. We just say, hey, this is what they're leaving with, right? New to industry, troubleshooting, right? And the last one is data analysis. So that's kind of our 3 tiers. And as far as inverter specific, we're the preferred training provider for all the legacy fleet for SMA America. Factory level certificates for that. We have 4 of their, utility scale inverters at our shop, as well as a few other inverters. We're always expanding that portfolio. We're hoping to be able to provide for, 10 plus, inverter specific training. So it's, hey, Adam, you come on down. We're going to teach you everything in the 4 walls of this inverter. That's it, right? Every single thing to do with that inverter, we're gonna take you through it. So 2 totally different things, the general aspect of technical training, and then, really zooming into manufacturer specific.
Yeah, no, okay, I got it. You've packaged the safety bit. Now you bring in the technical training, and obviously you're starting off very small to introduce, free electrons and the flow of current and DC, AC. Bring them into the cabinets. Now it's components, right? And you have breakers and capacitors and relays and how it all functions, so they can understand the operation. And then I heard change out components. Mm-hmm. So you're teaching them then repair, replacement, probably some regular maintenance activities.
Mm-hmm. And then we break them. We tell them to fix it.
If they break, this makes sense. You broke it, you fix it?
No, we break them and we tell them to fix it.
You break it. Okay.
Hey, you can troubleshoot now, right?
Ooh, I like it. Yes, that's a good way to do it.
Yes, we also are able to insert faults, and that's also another one of my favorite aspects of the industry is how do we build better troubleshooters. There's nothing that I hate more of getting a phone call from a technician in the field. Hey, I replaced this fuse 7 times and it's still blowing. It's like, okay, what is causing this fuse to blow? And that kind of basic troubleshooting theory. So we do troubleshooting theory. What is troubleshooting? How do you approach a fault of any kind? Not even necessarily a specific manufacturer fault or fault code, but just how do you approach faults in general and troubleshoot them efficiently or effectively? And then we actually insert faults so they can troubleshoot. So that's more of our higher end technical training where they get that kind of real hands-on real world experience.
Yeah, moving forward, we want to do something similar for battery storage. And then for me personally, I've been a GW instructor for a long time. So they already have like the basic safety, basic technical, advanced rescue training, right? Which is just a hub rescue. I would like to do the technical wind training, right? The borescoping, the generator alignments, right? The generator installation testing, the things that are more technical, right? So still build that out. So that's still in the future. And to answer your earlier question, so after we kind of got together, 1 or 2 years in, we made the big step of getting the building, right? Ton of money invested in. Right now we're about 7 employees. Actually, we are 7 employees, full time, but we're actively, we'll be hiring again soon. Always expanding, but to find the correct personnel with the heart, the experience, and it's a unique challenge to find the correct people that carry the passion that we do moving forward. But yeah, I foresee now being really the growth forward to try to, again, reach as many technicians as we possibly can.
That's fantastic. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Altair Energy Services, and their highly trained, expert technical staff, leveraging decades of renewable power management experience into customized solutions for everyone to meet their energy goals and contribute to a better future for all. Altair's team of hardworking, respected experts are providing full-scope, turnkey repairs, planned and unplanned maintenance, system upgrades, fully autonomous technical crews, supplemental staffing, and customized dynamic scheduling to fit your power production needs. Contact Altair at info@altairenergyservices.com and learn more about their wide range of capabilities across multiple power technologies and platforms. Okay, you hit the technical. Jon, you mentioned career path training. What does that mean?
So a lot of places can't define their own career pathway. So when they come to us, we will basically explain it for them what we think, right, for a career pathway, starting from the safety training they need to the on-the-job verification. Like, hey, once they're safe, now they're in the field, right, they can operate safely for X amount of hours, and it's totally different per site, right? We can kind of cater it to this. Once they get signed off by a qualified, person, they come back, right, and we give them the next step. And that's basically structured on our, new to industry troubleshooting ability and then data analysis, but unique to their environment.
And you're explaining this to the technician early on in the career, whether they're new to industry or just new to solar, but you explain that then so that they have some, couple year outlook.
Yeah, we usually do, but we don't know, right? We can't govern the company that they work for, but we kind of tell them, hey, despite where you're at, this is kind of the natural progression of what you should be doing. We try to set the goals for them even in the, the early stages, or somebody's already out there doing troubleshooting, but they don't really quite understand electrical theory. It's like, hey, let's take a step back, let's backfill in the stuff, right? And then you get the aha moment, and then we can move forward from there. But yeah, that's typically speaking, regardless of where they're at, the progression.
Career path training is unique, and it's great to be sharing. It does kind of bring me to one of the what's up topics, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Just a what's up career discussion. The concept is, let's share with the world. How do you become you?
How do you become me?
What was your career path?
Yeah, my career path was a ton of time in the field, and I always had a big heart to help people. And I was tired of seeing people struggle. So if someone wanted to be me, it's, have a big heart, follow your moral compass, don't let anyone get in your way, do what's right. And regardless of who tells you can't do it anyway. And, I had 100 people tell me I couldn't make it to where I'm at today. And I just kept going forward because it was the right thing to do. So, if you get in trouble for doing the right thing, or you feel, threatened by doing the right thing, then that's probably not the environment you should be in. And set your goals, right? If you want to help people, if you want to achieve something, you can achieve anything. If you just set that target, right? If you don't have a target, you're always going to hit it, right? Meaning you're going to go in circles. You need to set a target, and you can achieve it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great how you stay so true to that passion and mission. How long were you a technician, though? You've been in the industry a while.
Yeah, I went to wind school in 2010, and then went to work at GE Manufacturing for a while.
Okay.
And then the plant shut down, and did GE field service. I worked for Vestas for a while, a few ISPs. So pretty much since about 2013-ish, I was, climbing towers, middle of nowhere everywhere. And saw some crazy things in construction, right?
Sure.
Saw the woes of commissioning and chasing LDs, saw some crazy stuff. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with a lot of different companies, and I realized that despite what name is on your shirt, we're all technicians, right? We all have the same story. So I was like, man, this whole company rivalry thing is stupid, So it's like the union of techs, It's like, hey, we're all wind techs at the end of the day, and and they kind of look out after themselves. But I'm trying to say, hey, let's, as an industry, look out after each other, right? And in the end, everyone wins, right?
That's right.
The employer wins, the employee wins, everyone wins. So,
and you got to see and work on a lot of different equipment.
Absolutely.
Power generation types, OEMs, locations.
Yeah, and that's another challenge. I mean, I really sympathize for these technicians that they're hired on and they're expected to learn and master, 10 or 15 different manufacturers of turbines while maintaining, 6 different safety devices for rescue, depending on what the site requires. And it's crazy. The demand on them is insane, and it's a perishable skill to rescue somebody, and the fact that they're only doing that once a year is crazy to me. It needs to be more often. But yeah, knowing what I know now, it's like the demand is crazy on these guys. If anything goes wrong, it's like it's always pinned on the technician, Not saying it's not always their fault, but I do think that there needs to be accountability, whether it's on the technician or it's on the management or it's on the, whoever. We all need to have accountability and strive towards doing the right thing or nothing changes.
Yeah, spot on. Can't argue with that. Steve, what's the career path look like?
Oh, I wish I could say it was because I had some insight into anything. It seems like so many of my big life choices were the wrong thing to do at the time. And I don't mean that to say, hey, always do the wrong thing for that time. But like I joined the Navy in 2007 when we were still at the peak of, the war on terror. Everyone was like, why are you joining the military now? When I got out of the Navy in 2013, the job market was not great. So everyone's like, why are you leaving this steady career path? You could stay for 20 years and retire. But I got out, got in solar. When I decided to leave my first job in solar, I was one of the most senior technicians. I had a pretty cush, easy job. I'd put in the time, I put in the effort. I could have just coasted on that reputation, but decided I want to, climb the corporate ladder. Got that corporate gig and was very well on my way to continue climbing if I wanted to stay there. And then, in the middle of COVID, starting a company, worst time to ever start an LLC was right there in the middle of COVID. So I wish there was just some magic thing of like, oh yeah, make this decision. But a lot of it really comes down to is being willing to bet on yourself, but not be so egotistical that you can't change directions. And I think that's one of, as a company, both Jon and I, our success comes from of like, wow, that was a really dumb decision. Let's go ahead and just put that one away and correct that instead of just saying, well, nope, we made the decision. We're going to stick with it for the next 2 years just because, don't you know who I am? I'm going to make this decision and stick with it. So I think a lot of our success really came down to is A, betting on ourselves, and B, when we failed, learning from that mistake and being willing to very publicly admit that mistake in a lot of cases.
No, that's fantastic. Appreciate you sharing. And you never know who can help out there, right?
Yeah.
For somebody looking to understand what their career path might be.
Yeah.
No, very fortunate. No, I appreciate that. There are a couple other items on here, and I think Jacob's telling me we're getting a little low on time. I'll tell you what, either way, we got to get Rise Renewables back and keep talking about some of the things that are going on in the industry, the critical thinking, cultural change. And it seems that Rise is definitely on the right path for setting a new standard in our industry. I appreciate it. I kind of wanted to ask, just from a conversation earlier, we talked about challenges with the industry, right? And you brought up safety, accountability, stop work authority. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
That means regardless of who's in the wrong, we as a industry need to hold people accountable to use corrective action, right? Without corrective action, your trajectory is the same. So if we truly believe in doing the right things, we need to give the individuals the right tools, regardless of what that costs. And we need to also hold people accountable and set a higher standard. So when people come into this industry, they realize that certain things are unacceptable. They don't even think about climbing without a harness or, standing on top of an inverter with no harness or mitigating hazards and just ignoring it. We all need to hold each other accountable. Technicians, management, everybody needs to. And I think everyone having a common goal, we can start to inch towards that. But, I feel there's a large problem where a lot of companies compete for projects and they come in so low that they don't really have, the funding to really help the technicians the way they need to be. And it could be my perception, but I just feel regardless of the cost, and again, I'm extremely biased to the technicians, so sorry, manufacturers, but I just think, we have to invest in the people that are bringing us forward. We have to, because otherwise it's, with this industry growing, it's going to go the wrong way really quick. And I'm pretty nervous about the growth of the industry if we don't change the trajectory to something better.
Yeah, I got it. So no, yeah, about the cost piece. I think what I'm hearing is you can't put a price tag on technical training to keep people safe.
Correct.
Is that?
Yeah, there needs to be deliverable skill sets, right? It can't just be, theory. It has to be practicality as well.
Yeah.
So we have to say, hey, however long that takes, right? And if it takes 2 weeks to get individuals to be competent in that task, then it takes 2 weeks, right? They set the pace. We can't say, hey, it takes 3 days because I can get them to pass the test in 3 days. That's not how it goes. We have to have them be able to prove competency in the task, and then that's how long it takes, and move forward like that. I think that closed loop training style is what really helps the end user, and not just, check the box and say, hey, we can strip down this standard and get them to the field quicker, and then we hear about individuals dying, and it makes me so mad. It's just, we're going the wrong direction.
And in the context of stop work authority, a lot of companies inadvertently use stop work authority as an incident report. Something happened, someone got hurt, someone got damaged. Now we're going to stop work. So how I always talk about stop work authority in classroom environments, just asking the question, hey, this doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, doesn't taste right. Stop licking bus bars at them. But it really tastes so good. But yeah, it's that idea of, hey, this doesn't quite look right, whether it's because I was trained a different way or this just doesn't sound right. Like, I know there's supposed to be some level of protective equipment that we're using. This tool that I currently have in my hand does not look like the bolt that I'm currently looking at, or the current driver. Is there a better tool for the job? Or, man, this is really a weird angle that we have to reach into this cabinet. I feel like there should be a tool that would make this easier. And I tell technicians all the time, I guarantee there is. The amount of tools and ingenuity when it comes to tool design is incredible. In my almost 20 years of field experience, I have been blown away every week about, like, this tool exists. Why didn't I know about this tool last project, or last year, or last company? But it's like, when was this made? Yesterday? No, like back in the 60s. What's going on with you? But yeah, a lot of that stuff of tools exist, process exists, documentation exists. We just don't always have access to it in the moment. So stop work authority to me is asking that question of, like, I know it should be here. Is it here? And if we can really just kind of hit the reset button on stop using stop work authority in the context of something happened, now I have to stop. Let's pull it back and actually stop before we have to hold people accountable. Because realistically, a line item on a JSA is a lot easier to write than an incident report saying I lost a finger, I got shocked, I blew up a stack, I did something else.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, being proactive instead of reactive, but also letting the technicians know you can't be afraid of negative recourse for using your stop work authority. There's a general conception that if you utilize stop work authority, you're looking like the odd man out. You're the guy that's not as confident, and it's actually a negative thing. So we're trying to totally change that to say, hey, no, it doesn't matter. Your safety comes number one regardless, and you need to draw the line, right? You have to do it. And then obviously, with every problem, offer some kind of solution. Hey, I can't do this, right? The end goal is to finish this job. I want to do the job. I just want to do it safely. Solution is, I need to move the time or get this tool or what have you, right? So offering a solution is part of those customer soft skills with that. And then, like we talked, utilize your start work authority afterward to get the job done and everyone's happy.
I'm a big fan of that start work authority. No, that's good. And you guys even brought it back to that technical training that would, help you resolve whatever problem caused you to stop, right? Yeah. The tool was made in the 60s, right? It's not available. It's just that we need more knowledge sharing, and the technical training needs to occur for us all to know and work safe.
Well, and a big thing is you don't know what you don't know. It's if I knew the right answer to get this job safely and effectively, why wouldn't I just do that? Knowing that that's going to be ultimately the most cost-effective way. But a lot of times, whether it's technicians, supervisors, management, don't know what you don't know. I didn't know this tool existed. I didn't know this process existed. I didn't know this document existed. And I've heard that so many times of, what? Why wasn't I given this procedure? Well, it's because no one knew it was there. Why wasn't I given this tool? Well, it's because, your team just didn't know that was a thing. Go walk down the Home Depot aisle and start asking, What does that do? What does that do? What does that do? And you'd be kind of surprised about what tools are actually out there for you to use.
Yeah. No, you usually only hear it from folks a little further in their career that they're comfortable asking those questions.
Right.
So you guys challenging it and supporting that culture needs to happen the moment you enter the industry.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
No matter your age or prior experience, that is key.
Yeah, the critical thinking aspects to know what questions to ask, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And as senior guys in the industry, we have to get out of our own way sometimes to actually be okay with being asked questions.
Yes. Yes. No, we everybody has to have patience when those questions come.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're precious, aren't they? If you want to change and improve the culture.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. This conversation was fantastic. I want these podcasts to be more than an hour, but let's stick to it. But you guys come back and let's keep talking. And I was thinking, since I've been in your shop, maybe bring us, you have some equipment that's portable, I think.
He wants to drag a inverter up here.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, I don't know about
I've got a 13,000 pound inverter that will not fit right here.
Probably
we'll give it a shot.
We could do the next podcast in our bay. How's that?
Well, look at all the stuff we got to haul. Maybe. Yeah. But you guys had some tabletop stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah.
To start to introduce, how does electricity work? And I think they look like children's games, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes children's toys are the best toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have a lot of very unique ways of approaching challenges like that. Of how do you teach AC/DC theory? How do you teach component theory? So that was one thing. I'm a pack rat at heart. I love just keeping stuff. So I've got many components I've just kept throughout a decade of being in the solar industry. Of like, hey, you're just gonna throw that away? I'm gonna stick that in my garage. So long story short, my wife was very thankful when we got our own building because she got a garage back that was full of hands-on practical tools and devices and materials and parts and all that fun stuff.
I bet new technicians are happy you hung onto it too.
Oh yeah.
When they get to come put their hands on it and tear it apart, put it back together. All right. How does the industry find Rise Renewables? Want some training?
RiseRenewable.energy is our website. From there, you can request a quote, go through our ticketing system, and that's requesting a quote for either our remote technical support, training, right, or development.
And our current renewables.energy.
RiseRenewable.energy.
Yeah, not renewables, RiseRenewable.energy.
RiseRenewable.energy.
Yeah.
All right, we won't mess that up. And they can obviously come to Tehachapi and find you guys, get a tour of the facility.
Absolutely.
Right? The lab, the hands-on, you have a classroom, the hands-on lab, and you got more and more equipment coming in there.
All the time. Yeah, we're currently at 5 utility scale units. We have 1 commercial solar unit, 1 residential solar unit. We are currently potentially 2 to 3 more utility units in the near future from a couple of different manufacturers that we don't currently have. And then, so social media, the only one that we're on is LinkedIn. So you can, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we like to post all of our class pictures and kind of what we're doing, week to week.
And we're at 414 Bailey Avenue.
414 Bailey Avenue, right down the street. It's fantastic. Guys, thanks for coming today. Really appreciate the time and you guys sharing the Rise Renewable story.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a good afternoon, guys.
You too.